I didn't check my phone that morning expecting anything. I had just finished making tea, the peppermint kind that used to help me sleep when nights ran long and unforgiving. But I wasn't sleeping these days, just existing quietly in corners. When the message came in, I was still staring at the steam, a sharp buzz. I didn't even think it would be from her. It read, "Don't ruin my wedding." No greeting, no apology, no acknowledgement that I just walked out of a 10-year marriage with nothing but my last name and a rental lease, just 6 words that wrapped their fingers around my throat and squeezed. I held the phone in my hand, thumb hovering, thinking maybe I missed something. A second message, a typo, something softer after. But that was it. That was the message. Don't ruin her wedding. Not even my sister's wedding, just her wedding, like I was an outsider already. And it hit me, not like a slap, that would have been honest, but like a whisper behind a closed door, the kind that makes you question your own ears. Some people only reach out when they want to control your silence, not support your pain. I'd read that somewhere, probably online at 2 in the morning. But today, it felt like truth dressed in kitchen light. I didn't cry, not then. I just stared at the phone until it dimmed out. The divorce itself had been paper clean, no mess, no scandal, just signatures and silence. We'd agreed to keep it civil, to not involve family, to end what had already bled dry a long time ago. But still, I thought, maybe, someone would show up. When I signed the final documents, the clerk had smiled gently. The courthouse smelled like old wood and lemon disinfectant. I was the only one in the hallway. Even at my lowest, I was still too invisible to inconvenience them. That night, I opened the family group chat, the one with the happy birthday gifts and bad weather jokes, thinking someone would at least call. Instead, my mother sent 100 heart emojis, just red hearts. No words, no names, not even my name. They filled the screen like a banner at a memorial. It felt like they were sending flowers to my grave and calling it love. I stared at them, watched the way they blinked on the screen like a heartbeat, silent, soft, meaningless. I didn't respond. What could I say? That emojis don't replace empathy? That sometimes the absence of words is louder than any scream? Verity, of course, was still the centerpiece. Her wedding planning updates rolled in like weather reports, cake tastings, linen choices, venue walkthroughs. Her voice on speaker at Mom's house, telling her to make sure I didn't bring my energy to the rehearsal. I found out from a cousin that Verity told people, Cormac's divorce better not overshadow my wedding, not her sister's divorce. Just that thing. The wedding consumed every conversation. I was just the footnote, the slight inconvenience that needed to be managed. A friend texted me, "Hey, just saw the seating chart. You're not at the VIP table?" I replied with a thumbs up. What else was there to say? Inside, I kept wondering, had I ever been part of their important? Maybe not. I had shown up, cleaned up, stayed late, smiled for photos, played the role. I'd been the quiet one, the stable one, the filler between their drama. And now, I reread Verity's message. Don't ruin my wedding. It wasn't about the divorce. It was about erasing me from a narrative I helped build. I typed a reply. I wouldn't dream of ruining it. I was never invited to be part of it anyway. But I didn't send it. Not yet. Instead, I got a notification reminder to RSVP to the rehearsal dinner. I looked at it, wondering if anyone would even notice if I didn't show. And deep down, I knew the answer. That evening, I wandered into the closet, brushing past coats and old dresses, looking for something, anything, that still felt like mine. Then I saw it, folded and tucked under a navy sheath dress. A napkin. Not just any napkin, a cloth square folded into a crane. Delicate, balanced, crisp at the edges. It took me a second to remember. Mom used to make me fold them before every perfect dinner party. I'd sit for hours as a teenager, fingers aching, folding bird after bird while Verity floated through like a guest in her own home. I picked it up, smoothed the wings, even folded this tight. It still holds form. That's the thing about paper birds. They don't fly, but they stay intact, no matter how much they're pressed, creased, hidden away. That night, I opened my laptop. I didn't cry. Didn't pace, just typed a single email to one person. Subject, May 14th. Message, Silas, are you available to host an event? I pulled into the venue's parking lot and sat in the car for longer than I should have. The sun was still high, and the breeze carried just enough warmth to remind me I had nowhere to hide. A part of me hoped the evening would blur by. Maybe I'd sit through it quietly, then disappear before anyone remembered I'd come. I stepped out and walked toward the grand white building, the same one I had suggested years ago to Verity and Mom when they were just dreaming of someday. It still looked the same, columns cleaned, lawn trimmed, lavender along the walkway. I had nothing to do with it this time. That, I kept reminding myself, was the point. The valet looked me over once and held the door with a quick, "Vendors around back." I smiled politely, shook my head. "I'm family." He apologized, but didn't sound sorry. Neither did the greeting team who handed me a program without so much as a glance. No hug, no "good to see you," just a paper with my name printed as C. Hale, near the bottom of the contributors list. Not under family, not near parents of the bride or siblings. Contributors. I wasn't invisible. I was mislabeled, which, in some ways, was worse. I moved into the ballroom, scanning the room for my seat. When I found the chart near the entrance, I had to read it twice. I wasn't with the Hale family. I wasn't near the wedding party or even the secondary ring of cousins. My name, if you could call it that, was printed neatly under Table 17, former co-workers of the groom. People I had never met. People who definitely didn't know who I was. I approached the table, my heels barely making a sound against the marble floor. A woman in a soft pink dress looked up as I reached for the chair. "Oh, are you with the catering team or wedding logistics?" I blinked once, held my voice steady. "Something like that." I sat down without another word. The silver place card read, "Miss C. Hale." Typed, generic, cold. I stared at it for a moment, my fingertips brushing the edge. Flash of memory. Mom teaching me to write names in cursive for Thanksgiving place settings. "Presentation matters," she'd said. "Details speak louder than speeches." Apparently, mine didn't speak at all. I tried to settle in, folding my napkin slowly, but every breath felt like I was inhaling someone else's celebration, choking on it. The conversations at the table blurred around me, laughter, toast clinks, strangers telling stories of the groom's college days. I wasn't part of it, not by accident, by design. This wasn't about seating. This was about being deliberately placed where no one would notice me, tucked beside strangers, just out of reach from where it might matter. Every place setting has a purpose. Mine was chosen to remind me I didn't belong. My throat tightened. I blinked fast. I wouldn't cry. Not here. Not again. Two guests behind me whispered just loud enough for their words to reach. "I thought she wasn't coming after the divorce." "I heard she made things messy." Their voices dripped with polite poison. Not judgment. Worse, casual disregard. I turned slightly, caught their eyes. They looked away. No apology, no discomfort, just disinterest. Sometimes being tolerated, I thought, feels more humiliating than being excluded. I excused myself, mumbled something about a phone call, and stepped outside. I didn't have anyone to call. I just needed space that didn't smell like lavender and surface-level sincerity. The evening air felt cooler now. Calmer. I pulled the program from my bag again. Flipped through the pages slowly. I wasn't in the family photo collage. Not one. Even pictures from our childhood. Cropped. Bio sections for the maid of honor, the high school best friend, even the dog's groomer. Nothing about me. No mention. No story. I folded the program in half and slid it into my purse, not to save it, but to remember what erasure looks like. And a part of me had accepted this long ago. Show up. Don't be seen. Be helpful. Be quiet. But tonight, sitting there as a footnote to someone else's headline, it felt different. All I've ever done was show up. And now, even that made them nervous. I walked back in, ready to leave completely, when I heard my name from the corner of the room. A teenage voice, unfiltered and too honest to be scripted. "Aunt Cormac!" I turned. My cousin's daughter rushed toward me, clutching a cupcake wrapper and pointing toward the main dining hall. "They forgot your name on the thank you banner." I followed her finger. Above the stage, a large printed banner read, "Special thanks to the Hale family." Below it, "Rutherford, Eula, Verity." No Cormac, no acknowledgement, just another place where I didn't make the list. I didn't laugh, didn't sigh, I just exhaled. Slowly, even their thanks had borders I didn't pass. I showed up early, not because I was needed, God knows they hadn't asked, but because I knew the logistics better than most of the vendors they hired. I slipped in quietly, staying out of the way, but still setting a few things right, moving centerpieces, straightening chairs, adjusting the lighting in the front garden. It was instinct, not obligation. Some people are just wired that way. We build what we're not allowed to stand on. As I walked through the main hall, I felt it in my bones, the way a room changes when it forgets its architect. I remembered standing in this very spot years ago when the place was nothing but bare wood, high hopes, and the wrong lighting. I had helped lay out the entire blueprint for wedding use, even sketched alternatives on napkins when they wouldn't give me a meeting room. I fought for those chandeliers, for the narrow arches that kept the echo from bouncing too hard. Now, a coordinator brushed past me and told Verity, "You have excellent taste." "The design is stunning." Verity smiled like she'd sculpted it from marble. They didn't steal a building. They stole the story. Later that night, I stood off to the side during the pre-event toast. Verity was glowing, dressed in soft silver, laughing with guests like she'd floated into womanhood on applause. I watched her raise her hand to sip her wine. That's when I saw it. The ring, emerald stone, gold band, delicate filigree at the sides. Our mother's heirloom. Mine. I'd never worn it, not because I didn't want to, but because she said she'd give it to me when the time was right. "It suits your hands," she once whispered. "Strong, long fingers, just like mine used to be." Now it sat on Verity's hand, like it had always been hers. I waited until the moment felt small enough to confront. Pulled Eula aside while Verity chatted with guests. Her eyes darted before I even opened my mouth. "I noticed the ring," I said, quietly. She gave me a gentle smile. "The kind that bruises instead of soothes." She needed it more, Cormac. We couldn't say no. She's been through so much planning this wedding. No apology, just convenience masquerading as love. "It wasn't the ring," I said. "It was the memory, and you reassigned it like a seating chart." I turned and walked away before she could offer another soft lie. My feet carried me outside to the back garden. The ivy wall had filled in since the first year I planted it, back when the venue didn't have enough coverage for photos. I ran my fingers along the brick I once insisted on curving outward to let rain flow properly. No one remembers that now. No plaques, no credits, not even a mention in the brochure. I opened my phone and began drafting an anonymous review just to reclaim some space, but I deleted it before hitting send. They didn't erase me by accident. It was strategic, complete, sanitized. I've been erased politely, professionally, thoroughly. I stood by the wall for a long while until the sun dipped enough for shadows to settle. Just before heading back inside, I heard a voice behind me. "Hey, weren't you the one who fixed the drainage here a while back?" I turned. A groundskeeper, older man, holding a toolbox. "Yeah," I said. "That was me." He nodded once. "Place wouldn't have survived its first year without that fix. Funny how no one ever mentions it." I smiled, just enough. That wasn't fame, but it was something. It was being seen. Later that night, I sat with my iPad, pulling up the original designs. Blueprints I hadn't looked at in years. I opened the event layout Verity had approved, the one she and her decor sponsor proudly shared on social media. They'd copied almost all of my old plan. Same center aisle, same lighting gradients, same guest traffic flow that I'd designed for efficiency. They didn't just remove my name. They printed theirs over mine. That was different. I started archiving everything. Screenshots, overlays, time-stamped files, quiet, clean. Then I opened a blank document. I didn't write a lawsuit. I wrote a speech. Not for the ceremony, not for public drama. Just a speech. No venom, no raised voice. Just facts. What I'd built, what they took, what stayed standing even after I stepped away. I saved the file, closed the iPad. Then, I copied it onto a flash drive and labeled it, "Do not play, move." If they insisted on pretending I was never here, I'd make sure the silence had weight. I brought the linens, not because they asked, but because I knew no one else would remember to. And if they did, they'd get the wrong color, too bright, too bold, not neutral elegance like Verity demanded. I carried the stack into the house, balancing it on one hip like I had done 100 times before. Eula greeted me with that practiced smile, the kind that doesn't touch the eyes. "You have time for tea, don't you?" she asked, not as a question, but a preset cue. I nodded. The answer was always yes. She poured chamomile into the china set she saves for family company, and I sat across from her, listening to the clink of spoon against porcelain. We made small talk about the weather, the caterer, the guest count. Then, like clockwork, she folded her hands and said, "Let's just keep things smooth. Your sister deserves this." There it was, that invisible hand pressing on my throat again. I swallowed it down and took a sip of tea. I could have said it then. And what did I deserve? But I didn't. She added gently, "Don't make things about you. This isn't the time." The words landed soft, but they stayed heavy, like a paperweight over an already flat heart. When is the time to be human again, I thought? When does my life stop being a threat to her happiness? Later, as I helped fold some menus on the counter, I found a stack of printed papers near the edge. Curiosity nudged me. Verity was careless with her drafts. I picked one up. It was her wedding speech. I didn't mean to read it, but my eyes caught on a paragraph halfway down. I froze. It was mine, word for word, lines I had scribbled in a notebook when I was 12. After our grandmother died, I'd written it during a thunderstorm, knees up to my chest on the bedroom floor. Verity had found it back then and said, "This is beautiful. I'll always remember this." Apparently she did. Because now it was printed under her name, set to be read aloud as her vow to her future husband. No quotation marks, no attribution, just stolen. I took the page, walked to the dining room where Eula was wiping down crystal flutes, and laid it in front of her. She didn't flinch. "She internalized your pain," she said. "That's what family does." "No," I answered, steady. "That's theft with a smile." I didn't wait for her reply. I left. Outside, I slid into my car, hands on the steering wheel, engine off. The silence there felt sharper than anything I'd heard inside. I thought about all the birthdays that got buried under someone else's announcement, about Thanksgivings where I cooked for hours, only to hear, "Let's give thanks for Verity's new promotion." Every year, I let it go. I told myself it wasn't worth it, that keeping peace was better than creating noise. But peace, when forced, is just silence under threat. I looked at my fingers, tight on the wheel. It wasn't rage I felt, it was clarity. This wasn't a boiling point. It was the moment I realized I'd been boiled slowly for years. Still, I didn't shout, didn't call anyone. I saved it. As I stepped out of the car to bring the linens back inside, Leo caught me in the hallway. Quiet as ever. He held out a folder. "You might want to see page 3. Then he walked off. Inside were early drafts of the wedding program. On the original layout, my name was there, in the acknowledgments. Then, on the next version, a thick red line through my name. Beside it, small initials, VB. My heart didn't drop. It stiffened. They didn't forget me. They deleted me. That night, I sat on the porch with a blanket and a printout of Verity's speech beside my old journal. I went line by line, marked every word that came from my pen but would be heard as hers. Then I folded both pages, slid them into a manila folder, locked it. I didn't text her, didn't send a copy, didn't threaten. This isn't revenge, this is preservation. I opened my phone, typed one note. Next time someone erases you, hand them a copy of what they missed. I stared at it for a while, then let the screen fade to black. My phone buzzed 5 minutes later. A message from Eula. We saw your reaction earlier. Please don't start drama. Your silence is the greatest gift you can give your sister. I stared at that line for a long time. You raised me to be polite. Now watch what politeness costs you. By the time I pulled up to the estate, the sky was bruising over with gray. It wasn't storming, just the kind of dense cloud cover that makes everything feel too quiet, like something's waiting to drop. I parked down the hill, far enough from the house that no one would notice my arrival. Or care. The gravel crunched beneath my flats. I walked slow, not because I was afraid, but because I knew what I was walking into. Another room full of people pretending they didn't know what they'd done to me. The pre-wedding mixer was already in swing. Champagne flutes in hand, forced laughter bouncing off the hedges. Verity floated around in cream silk like a pageant queen, her smile automatic. Our mother trailed behind, fixing details that weren't out of place. I stayed near the side garden, near the fence, sipping a drink I didn't ask for. No one approached. No one acknowledged me. Leo saw me from across the yard and gave a short nod. That was enough. We'd learned the rules of this family. Affection is currency, and silence keeps the peace. 30 minutes in, and I already felt like a squatter in my own bloodline. Then she came, mid-50s, pearls, hair too stiff to move. I didn't know her name, but I knew the type. Southern, polished, used to polite cruelty. "You're Cormac, right?" she said, voice dipped in syrup. I nodded. "I've heard you were going through something. Brave of you to still come." I didn't answer. She smiled, wider this time. "Honestly, with all the pressure on Verity, I'm just glad you're not adding to it." She walked away before I could respond. Not malicious, just efficient. I gripped the stem of my wine glass so tight I thought it might snap. I set it down before my hand started shaking. They don't stab here. They smile while handing you the blade. I moved toward the back porch, trying to find something to anchor me. Then came the voice I didn't expect. "Auntie Cormac!" Verity's goddaughter, 8, maybe 9, ran up holding a cupcake wrapper and wearing 2 big shoes. "How come you never wore a wedding dress?" The question was loud, innocent, curious, and it stopped the air in the room. I felt the ripple. Every adult heard it. Every one of them looked away like they didn't. No one stepped in. No one softened the blow. I crouched down to her level. "I guess," I said, "I didn't have the right audience." She nodded like it made perfect sense and skipped off. The adults resumed sipping like nothing happened. I stood, straightened my back, smiled for no one. Inside the powder room, I leaned over the sink and stared at my reflection. Lipstick still perfect, earrings still in place. Heart coming apart in corners no one would see. If I walked out now, I wouldn't be missed. But if I stayed, I might break, and they'd call it overreaction. I pulled out my phone, scrolled to Silas, hovered over his name. Then I closed it. Even revenge needs strategy. This pain, it wasn't sharp enough yet to become a weapon. As I stepped out through the side garden, the rain started. Light, barely there. Leo was waiting near my car, holding an umbrella like he'd been standing there a while. We didn't say much. We didn't need to. He walked with me until I opened the door. Before I got in, he looked at me and said, "It's not your fault they only love the easy version of people." I nodded. That's how we spoke, Leo and me. Not with long talks. Just enough to stop the bleeding. The drive home was quiet, no music, just thoughts. Back inside, I kicked off my shoes, poured a glass of water, and sat down in front of my laptop. I pulled up the file I'd been sitting on. Do not play.mov. I watched it. Once. No emotion. Then I opened my email, attached the file, and typed, "Backup," just in case they forget what I did, and hit send. I walked into the house they called the wedding hub, like I was stepping onto a movie set I'd been cut from. Planners huddled in corners, stylists moved like ants with spray bottles, and everything had a glossy sheen of perfection that felt fake under my shoes. It smelled like roses and money and pressure. I had no official role here, but I was told I should come to help finalize last little details. That usually meant do the work, take no credit. I knew the script. Verity, in a silk jumpsuit and heels higher than her morals, moved through the space like she owned it. Technically, she did. Temporarily. The spotlight was hers. Again. No one greeted me. Not my mother, not her bridesmaids, not even the photographer who had taken our family picture since I was 16. "You can disappear long before you leave," I whispered under my breath. And I had. The planners clapped twice. Everyone turned to the front. Then the door opened, and in walked Silas. Tall, smooth, holding cue cards like he belonged, like he hadn't been mine once, like he didn't know he was the reason my stomach dropped to the floor. My mouth didn't move, my body didn't either. Leo saw him, looked at me, then quickly turned away. Only one person kept watching me, Verity. She smiled like it was nothing, like none of it was loaded. "We needed someone charismatic," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You two are cool now, right?" I nodded. Because if I opened my mouth, I might have bled. They'd crossed the line, not with the invite, not even with the timing, but by assuming I'd take it. Silas and I hadn't spoken in months. The last time we did, he said he wouldn't accept any gigs that overlapped with my family. "Out of respect," he said. Apparently, that had an expiration date. While the rehearsal moved on, I stayed back, mostly in the periphery. But that didn't stop the sting from landing straight in my chest every time someone thanked Verity for her creative vision. The floral arch, my design. The layout, mine. The napkins, my folds, copied and duplicated like factory print. I overheard a photographer say, "She really has an eye for design. It's all so original." Verity smiled. "I've always been hands-on." She didn't correct a word. They didn't just steal from me. They learned how to make it look like it was always theirs. During the lunch break, I found her alone, fixing her lipstick in a mirror near the hallway. "You're not subtle," I said. She didn't flinch. "You're just used to no one calling you out." "Don't act like this is some conspiracy," she added. "You're the one who never asked for credit." "That doesn't mean you're entitled to take it." Verity capped her lipstick, looked at me through the reflection. "If you cared that much," she said, "maybe you should have built something louder." I stepped back and let the space fill with tension we both pretended wasn't about to crack open. We walked away in opposite directions before anyone saw. Back home, I paced. The kind of pacing that meant you're rehearsing conversations you'll never have. I opened my planner, looked at the words, "attend ceremony." I crossed them out, slowly, carefully. Then I circled 2 words, "execute Plan B." I pulled out a drawer. Not from the wedding folder, but from my own, the one I'd kept sealed since the divorce. Silas's old business card sat on top. "If you're going to be the MC," I muttered, "then you'll help me say what they won't let me." I picked up my phone. Texted, "Change of script. Want the truth this time?" I didn't expect an answer so soon, but there it was. "Thought you'd never ask." I smiled. Not because I'd won anything, but because, for the first time in weeks, I wasn't carrying their lies in silence. I opened the file. "Do not play.move," then renamed it. "Play exactly as is.move." I stood at the back of the rehearsal room, watching people move like pieces in a polished production. Verity ran the show like she always did, headset in one ear, gestures sharp, smiles rehearsed. This wasn't a family event anymore. It was a press release wrapped in roses and LED lighting. No one said my name. No one needed to. I stayed out of the camera frames, just like she asked. "Could you stand back a bit, Cormac? You're in the preview shot." That's what she said without even turning her head. I nodded. I always nodded. But today, I watched the stage like it was mine. Because it was just once. Just long enough to remember how it felt before I started giving it away. During the coffee break, I stepped outside for air. That's when my phone buzzed. Leo. It was a screenshot, a group chat, family only, one I wasn't in. Verity had sent a photo of my earlier message to her, the one where I agreed not to stir things up. Underneath, her caption, "Finally." She said she'll keep quiet. A string of thumbs up from relatives followed, red hearts, clapping hands. I didn't move. I didn't delete it. That silence I'd carried like some badge of grace. It was a punchline, and they were laughing at me for wearing it too long. I heard that line in my head like a whisper from someone wiser. Silence only feels noble until you realize who's celebrating it. Back inside, the rehearsal moved forward. The playlist for the ceremony cues, the lighting transitions, the speeches. Then it was Silas's turn. He walked onto the stage, calm, collected, not reading off the cards yet. I walked toward him quietly before he began. We met halfway. I handed him a folded paper, 3 bullet points, a flash drive labeled, "Play exactly as is, move." I said nothing dramatic, no monologue, just, "Say it your way, but let them hear it." He looked me in the eye and nodded. Then he stepped to the mic. He started the speech as expected. Light humor. A few stories about the couple, charm on cue. Then he paused. "Funny how stories get rearranged," he said, especially when the author wasn't invited to the edits. Silence. No music, just stillness. He clicked the remote. Behind him, the screen changed. Photos of the venue in its original stages, sketches, a single crane-folded napkin, a video clip of someone laying out rows of chairs with the same spacing the wedding planner now called custom. People started turning to each other. Soft murmurs, tension thickened like humidity before a storm. Verity's face tightened. Eula stiffened but stayed seated. I said nothing. No victory smile. No glance to see who was watching me. I didn't need to. Leo leaned toward me and whispered, "You didn't burn it down. You just turned on the light." And that? That sat deeper than applause ever could. After the rehearsal, Verity found me in the hallway. "You made him say that. You want to ruin everything?" "No," I said. "I wanted you to know I still exist. That's all. You could have just said it to me." "I did," I said, "for 30 years. You only heard it now because a man with a mic repeated it." That stopped her. Not because she didn't understand, but because she did. All of it. I walked away before she could say more. That was new. That night, at home, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "Saw the rehearsal. That wasn't what we agreed to." No name, no threat, just weight behind the words. I didn't reply. I didn't block them either. I opened my laptop, uploaded the full video, unlisted link, just in case. Caption: "Just for the record." I walked into that room knowing exactly who I was and what they'd tried to bury. I wore emerald. The same color Verity once claimed clashed with her theme. This time, I chose it not for approval, but because it made them look, not at me, but at everything they'd tried to erase. The air was thick, not tense, just aware. People greeted me with polite nods, no warmth, but no pity either. I could tell by the way they looked and looked away that the mic drop from Silas still lingered. The venue was familiar, too familiar. I passed the arch I designed, touched the carved wooden edge I'd once fought to keep in budget. I whispered, "Still standing," not to the room, but to myself. Leo caught my eye from across the room. One small nod. That was enough. The evening started as they wanted, controlled. Silas took the mic, opened with light jokes and practiced charm. He was good. He always was. Verity sat close to the front, Eula at her side, both women tight-lipped, rigid, prepared. Then came the video, the thank you segment. The lights dimmed, the projector flickered, and Verity's smile tightened. She expected another montage, glossy shots, a credit roll with her name 10 times over. What she got instead was a glitch. Then a file loaded. "Do not play, move." It began without warning. Footage rolled of me. Younger, quieter, focused. Laying out blueprints, sketching floor plans with coffee-stained fingers. Then photos of me folding the first crane napkins, placing test candles, adjusting table angles. Next, a scratchy voice recording. Our mother, complimenting my eye for detail at a Thanksgiving long before Verity cared about centerpieces. Then a fast-forward clip. Me setting up flowers. Same flowers now praised as Verity's vision. Silent proof. Not a flex. Just fact. The screen shifted. Side-by-side pages. My childhood journal next to Verity's wedding speech. Identical lines. Stolen. No narration. just timestamps. And truth. The room froze. No one clapped. No one moved. Verity sat pale and still. Eula turned her head slowly toward her but said nothing. Then, softly, a pair of hands clapped, deliberate, measured. A man stood near the back. Older, in a navy jacket. I recognized him, an old investor from a nonprofit I once helped build, someone who knew me before I vanished behind their spotlight. He said, "No one here should be surprised. We just didn't expect her to prove it this well." Murmurs spread. People leaned in, whispered. No chaos, just rearranged understanding. Verity stood, walked to the mic. Her voice shook. "I didn't know this was going to be—" I didn't let her finish. "You didn't know," I said from the floor, "because you never asked. That's how this always begins." Eula stood. "This isn't the time." "It never was," I replied. "That's why I had to make one." Verity's mouth opened, but she said nothing. There was nothing left to script. The silence after wasn't awkward. It was honest. And for the first time, it sat on my side. I didn't stay. I nodded at the staff, grabbed my coat, and walked out. The rain had started again. Light, cold, but clean. I didn't rush. On the sidewalk, I checked my phone. The video link had begun to spread. Not viral, but real. I texted Silas. "Thanks for hitting play." He replied, "They wrote the story. You just gave it an ending." When I got home, something waited at my door. A small box, no name. Inside, one crane napkin, folded perfectly. A note tucked inside. I remember now. I didn't know who sent it, but I set it next to my laptop, closed the lid, and turned off the lights. I woke up earlier than I needed to, not out of excitement or nerves, but out of something quieter. Clarity. The house was still. No buzz of texts, no reminders. Just the sound of myself not rushing for anyone. I passed by the box from the night before, the one I hadn't opened until now. The crane napkin sat perfectly folded inside, untouched by time or tension. I didn't need to guess who sent it. I didn't need to ask. Some things are better kept unconfirmed. I slipped it into my purse, not for drama, just for me. I dressed without spectacle. Gray blouse, flat shoes, no makeup beyond lip balm. Not because I didn't care, because I didn't need to be looked at anymore to be seen. Some endings don't need applause, just witness. By noon, I was at the venue. I didn't go inside. I stood near the foyer, beneath the overhang, where I could see the people but stay outside their frame. No one asked questions. One cousin gave me a small nod, mouthed, "I'm sorry," then walked off. That was fine. The windows were wide enough to show the setup inside. Folded cranes on every table, centerpieces just like I designed years ago. I didn't know who placed them. I didn't care. They were there. Eula passed me on her way inside. Her eyes met mine, briefly. Then they didn't. I stood still. Verity found me first. She stepped outside like she hadn't decided whether to confront or confess. Her tone tried for neutral. "So this is how you'll remember me?" I looked at her, held her gaze. "I already had my memories," I said. "You just rewrote them." She let out a soft breath. "You wanted a moment. You got it." "No. I wanted you to stop stealing mine." There was nothing left to say. No screaming, no scene. Just the slow way she turned and walked back in. The door clicked behind her, firm like punctuation, the kind that ends chapters. I stayed by the side garden where the sound of the wedding playlist played faintly through the glass. Guests chatted. Servers moved plates. The world didn't end. I stood beside an older woman. I didn't recognize her until she spoke. "You were always the thoughtful one," she said. "That doesn't get celebrated enough, does it?" I smiled, not bitter, just real. "It will now. Even if it's just me doing the celebrating." She smiled back, like that meant something. I saw myself briefly, young, folding napkins in the kitchen, Verity getting praised for arranging them, Mom calling it her touch. I breathed in deep. Not sadness, just release. Before I left, I walked to the guestbook table. No one noticed. I signed my name in cursive, the way Mom once made me practice. Underneath, I wrote, Was here, built some of this. Then I took the crane from my purse and laid it gently next to the pen. As I turned to leave, Leo caught me at the door. He didn't stop me, he just said, "You didn't lose. You just stopped playing." I nodded. That was our language. Outside, the sky hadn't changed. Neither had I, not in the way they'd hoped. Later that night, I sat by the water with my laptop open. The file was blank. I titled it, "My Name, My Story." The crane sat beside me, not as a souvenir, as a start. Some truths don't ruin families. They reveal who was holding it together. I started typing.